The 2020 Investor Show with Ray Sasser starts now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 2020 Investor Show. I think we've got a really jam-packed show, and we've got some good questions coming in. If you have questions, feel free to call in. And my co-host is here with me, Thomas Turner. How are you today, Thomas?
I'm very good. I'm glad to be here again.
Well, good. And we've got a special guest with us, is Charles Nguyen. And him and I kind of do the Houston Real Deal meeting. Well, we don't do it anymore since COVID, do we, Charles?
Yeah, COVID's kind of messed that up a little bit, but we'll get back at it soon.
Yeah, and Charles, I guess it's okay to say you kind of like started as a student of mine, and now I'm basically a student of yours, and that's what happens with the really good students. So, and first time I met Charles, he was like dumpster diving around Bank of America or Wells Fargo or something like that, and I felt sorry for him, and I just kind of picked him off the street. But you've come a long way since then. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've done, Charles?
Yeah, Charles, why don't you tell us your side of that story?
Yeah, no, first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on board today. I appreciate the opportunity. Always good to hang out with some living legends over here, and I'm just like you guys on the radio show. I'm here to learn as well and provide as much value as I can. So a little bit about me. My background is I was in corporate America for most of my adult life. I worked at different banks, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, doing IT work, and then I started looking at other opportunities and. Kind of found real estate, and then somehow I ended up at a course that Ray was teaching, and next thing you know, I became one of his students, and then was just kind of off and running. I learned a ton from him, especially on creative financing and deal making, and then kind of as I progressed a little bit, then I started getting into a lot more of wholesaling and also working on scaling businesses, wholesaling businesses. And, also one thing I've done kind of recently is over the last couple months is also shift a little bit and start to work a little bit more on commercial properties, apartment buildings. So that's kind of a little bit of background on me.
Yeah. Well, Charles and I guess we did the Houston Real Deal first, right? We started doing that, and I think I stole that name from the Turners because y'all were doing something called the Real Deal.
The original Real Deal radio show. That's right.
But then we did that, and that was a lot of fun because we'd meet. What was the name of that place?
The Black Labrador.
The Black Labrador. We'd always get 75 or 100 people and show up, and it was a real good community because everybody had fun. Everybody got a say-so of what was going on. And then we started the buying group, right?
Yeah.
And both of us learned a lot about running a buying group. It was like herding a bunch of wild geese is how I would describe it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a learning experience. I would say one of the things that any new investor out there is the biggest thing is make sure you put in the work.
It's work.
Yeah,
it's work, but it's fun too.
Oh yeah, it's always fun. I mean, helping other people out is always kind of fun. I mean, the one thing I always say, and the one message you get from me from being here would be, it's a team sport. So make sure you hang out with the right people and help each other out, treat each other as people who can collaborate versus competitors.
Now, one thing Charles did that just kind of blew me away is you ran one of the largest, and maybe was it the largest wholesaling meeting in the nation?
I don't know if it was the largest, but it felt,
it was huge.
Yeah, it was. It was quite an event, and we ran an event called Wholesaling, and where we got quite a number of the best wholesalers in the country to come to Houston and provide some training. And which was a really good event. I think to me, the biggest accomplishment of that one was the amount of time it took us to pull it off, because start to finish, from the time we said we were going to run the event until the first day of the event was probably less than 100 days.
Well, first of all, I remember you being there. Now, it was obvious that you hadn't slept in 5 days because it was just such a massive undertaking, and you had some of the best wholesalers in the nation. And these are guys that aren't gurus on selling their product. These are guys that are out there buying 20, 30, 40 houses a month, and they're running big operations. And this is where I became the student, is because when I went to that, Charles, those guys and you just opened my eyes to, I had been actually getting kind of lazy because I was doing it the old school way. And it's like, all of a sudden, I mean, it's just like getting hit by a Mack truck, just seeing how these guys were getting their data, how they were doing it. And it's a science. And you talk a lot about that, about big data and just the science of wholesaling. So what you think you know about wholesaling, or pardon me, about buying houses, that's changed dramatically in the last 6 years if you've not kept your finger on the pulse of things.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And it changes on the drop of a dime now as well. As more and more people get into it, then, some marketing channels that work, that worked 3 months ago may not work anymore. Yeah,
it's like the speed, the rate at which it's accelerating is increasing. It's not just accelerating, it's increasing faster and faster. And it's like the whole world can go to a concept and they just saturate that market instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are, and we need to bring some of those guys on, some of your buddies from across the country, just like in Phoenix and some people in Florida, and just bring them in and see what they're doing. So what else are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think you actually got started on a great topic. We've talked about setting goals for this year, putting your goals on paper, figuring out your path for the coming year so you can achieve the end results that you really want. And we talked about putting it on paper. Last time we talked about the mentorship thing, and I think, Charles, you really touched on something, and that is the unique thing about real estate is once you get into it and you start doing it and you start seeing success and having success in it, it almost comes natural that you begin in wanting to be that mentor for someone else, just like someone was a mentor for you. And I think that's a lot of the reason why yourself and Ray have become mentors and coaches and guides, because you're not only helping others, and that's gratifying, more gratifying than just about anything, but you're also building your own network.
And if you tap into the right people, you got the right people around you, or the right students, or the right teachers, it doesn't matter. It's like steel sharpening steel. It just rises the tide so fast. And you want to be a part of that. You don't want to be like I did on the wholesaling part of it. Wholesalers would bring me deals, and I'd say, I'll take it. Well, this whole industry has changed. And just because of what Charles set up, we started our own little company, 3 of us, where all we do now is lead generation. And we're not nowhere near on Charles's level, but it's like you're either gonna be a part of that way of doing it, or you're gonna be left way behind.
Right, absolutely. So, and that's why having either doing it yourself or having that as a part of your team or your mastermind alliance is critical, because to survive, you have to get the deals. Right. You have to have access to the deals. So that's why it's important for us to come together as an investor community and work together, because we really need each other in a lot of ways.
Charles, and maybe we'll have some time to talk about some of the ways that you do lead generation, but last week we were talking about hiring a guy to help us do SEO and to do AdWords. And it's like, I have the SEO and the AdWord concept here, and I've been a real big recipient of that, how that works really good. But then I see Charles here, and that little guy is going around, and he's getting to those people before they come to us. He's getting to them before they even want to know they want to sell, or right when they want to know. And it's just the way that they're using data science. I mean, you want to talk about that real briefly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we could talk about, right now, because I think it's because of the internet. That's why it's much easier for people to get information, not just on houses, but also how to do real estate. So that's why you have a lot of people in the business. And then with all these data companies out there, if you want to go get data, it's pretty easy. And
when I first started, we would occasionally do skip tracing, and I learned how to do my own skip tracing because I wasn't going to pay anybody $300 to skip trace for me. Yeah. And I still wasn't any good, compared to those guys. And tell us, how much does it cost to skip trace somebody now?
So nowadays you can get, all right, so I always characterize it, I tell people, you can go with the cheapest, but you're going to get what you pay for. So anytime somebody says they get it for 3 cents, I'm like, I'd rather not have that data. But so some reputable ones, I was seeing some specials over the Christmas holidays for about 10 cents, which is,
well, that's still cheaper than what we're paying now. We're paying like, I want to say 13 or 15 cents.
Yeah. So definitely in that range. But the data's, there's so much data out there now, and you can, within a couple minutes, you can have a couple thousand records.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be going to a break soon, but real quickly, let's give the background on that for a lot of the new investors that aren't familiar with it. What exactly, the skip tracing and the data mining that you're doing, give a little bit of.
Yeah. So if you're brand new and starting out, then most of the times people will tell you, go get a motivated list. Let's just say motivated seller lists. And one example that people use a lot is the tax delinquent list. So you can go to the county, get a list of folks who are behind on their taxes. And if they're behind on their taxes, then chances are they're going to be more likely to sell. So you get a list of names and addresses from the county, and then you can send it over to a company who can skip trace it for you, and they will basically get the phone numbers for you. And then from there, you can either cold call them, or a lot of times nowadays people are sending texts or ringless voicemails. So you get those lists, and then that's how you just start marketing to them. I mean, and most of the people out there who have houses, I'm sure you kind of get text or random calls about people wanting to buy your house. And that's effectively what investors are doing out there now.
So you're literally getting to them. It's like instead of them going to the internet, which those are great leads, you're getting to them as soon as you can see their problem. And the niche, it's all about niches, right? Because you've got to have a better list than other people. I mean, in direct mail, we learned that early on, is the direct mail piece is not near as important as who you're talking to.
Exactly.
And with what you're doing is you're doing lead stacking, right?
Yep.
And you're doing text blasting and all these other things. And it's just it's all about the niches. And that's, as we're diving deeper into this, we're seeing how hard it really is.
No, it's a bit of work. I mean, I've got my background's in IT, so it's much easier for me.
Right,
I can understand the concepts, and I'll just expand a little bit on a word you mentioned, lead stacking, so that other people can understand it as well.
Right.
Lead stacking is basically if you get houses which have multiple different stress points. So, for instance, if they're tax delinquent, and if let's say it's on an inherited list as well, and they're on a code violation, then they're much more likely to sell than someone who's just maybe
Right.
on an inherited list.
Right.
I think that walks us right up to the next topic, and that is for investors, maybe they're just getting started or early in their path, they need to choose an investment vehicle, whether that's wholesaling, whether that's flipping, whether it's buy and hold or true investing.
And we've got Charles Nguyen, the student that's now the teacher, and I'm learning a lot from him. So I trick him into coming up here so I can learn the latest tricks and things that he's doing so I can try to play catch up. So did we finish talking about goal setting? We've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks.
We have.
So now we want to, generally speaking, when you do a real estate deal, you're either going to be a buy and hold kind of guy, or you're going to be a flip person, or you're going to be a wholesale person. And some people are doing all three. We're kind of trying to do all three. We're trying to dial flipping out just because it's not passive enough. It's way too much work. And but wholesaling, the power of being a good wholesaler, just like Charles is looking for these deals with particular class, like in apartments, if he can buy that right, and because Charles is really great at creative structures. And by the way, that's kind of a segue into our negotiation class that we do every year or so. But by being able to put those deals together in a smart way, he can make deals happen that a lot of people, they put their deals on the market to sell them and they can't sell them. And Charles can structure it in such a way that it makes a lot of sense. And so the wholesaling is a good way to start. And then eventually the wholesalers become maybe flippers. Sometimes they become buy and hold guys. Sometimes, like in our case, we started our own wholesaling operation because we wanted to have the flow. I didn't want to compete with the host. We're competing with the wholesalers, but I want to compete with other investors. I wanted to make sure I could continue to get my own deal flow. So, do we want to talk about wholesalings, or which one?
Yeah,
of
I
those
think
you want to
so.
talk
And for the new investors out there, give them a snapshot on what exactly wholesaling is and what kind of investor fits that model.
about? Well, one thing I'll tell you, most everybody thinks when they're starting real estate, they have to start out wholesaling. That's not true, but when you're doing real estate, you have to get leads, you have to have money, you have to make that asset produce. And there's lots of reasons why assets don't produce, but without the leads and without the money to take it down, then you're not going to do anything. Wholesalers, all they really have to do is have the leads. If they have the leads, and Charles, you're welcome to cut in because you've really mastered this wholesaling better than any of us sitting here. But once you have that lead, then it's a question of how do I do my due diligence? How do I get the people? How to convert the people? How to get them to say yes? How do I lock up the deal so that I could shop it to Ray or Tom or Charles? So we've got to figure out how to do that. When we did what happened is when we started our buying group, the concept, it kind of backfired. It didn't backfire. We did okay with it. We made some deals, but tell me if you agree with what happened here is we actually became unpaid coaches, and we became the guys doing all the due diligence, and we became the guys me and you became the guys locking up all the contracts. So it is a lot of work, and it's not something you can just start out and be good at. I mean, what do you think the difference between somebody, Charles, that knows how to convert a lead versus somebody that doesn't know how to convert a lead?
Well, that'll boil down to somebody who stays in business and someone who doesn't.
But there's numbers to it, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
When you're starting, I mean, what would you expect somebody really just out of the box? What percentage would you think they could convert versus somebody that's got a lot of tools in their toolbox?
Yeah, I mean, if you're starting out, I mean, anywhere from probably 1 in 50 to 100 leads to get a deal, and once you get kind of better, then it should taper down into the 1 in 20. You know, I mean, the one thing I would kind of say about wholesaling is a lot of people don't realize is wholesaling is really a business. It's an active business. It's not like a buy and hold where, buy and holds, you may have to go fix a toilet or fix the roof or whatnot every now and then. But when you're running a wholesaling business, and it's actually a full-blown business. You're responsible for lead generation, you're responsible for acquisitions, and you're responsible for dispositions, how you sell the property as well. When I first started out, I had no intentions of going into the wholesaling business. But the way I kind of fell into it was I started building my own lead generation engine because I didn't really, I wanted to, like Ray was talking about, control the deal flow. So started building my own marketing engine, and then next thing you know, I'm getting leads, and then next thing you know, I'm running a wholesaling business.
Yeah, and it's like a treadmill, right? Or like a hamster treadmill, whatever those are called. Once you get going, you've got to keep running faster and faster, right? And then in your case, I know that you were up to like 10 or so VAs, right?
Yep.
That were helping scrub the list and building the list. So that's an incredible amount of work. Now, ideally, when you start out as wholesaler, you want a lot of wholesalers go into flipping. But guess what? It's like you're trading one job for another job. And both of those jobs are good jobs, especially if you want to be a buy and hold person, because you might be able to occasionally get that buy and hold property. And now you've built some relationships, you've built some trust. It's easier to get money to get in the deals. And next thing you know, you're buy and hold. And then also, like in our negotiation class, it's probably should be called negotiation/creative structures, because we're transactioneering. We're literally setting up the way the deals can go down and getting that conversion rate. By going from 1 out of 50 to 1 in 20, you're tripling your amount of conversion, and it's because now you have more tools and you have more ways to do that. And it's interesting to watch somebody talk to somebody that's got a lead, like somebody wants to sell their property and they don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to say it's embarrassing, but they just don't put a lot of those deals together.
So, yeah, especially when you're starting out, you kind of don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what a sub 2 is. You don't know how to do a wraparound. Your very first deal, which you and I kind of put together, but your very first deal, we did a sub 2, right?
Yep.
And then we did a wraparound. You still have that, right?
Yeah. It's it was I was in the process of maybe refinancing, so may close out soon, but
Yeah. But it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah,
still cash flowing. So,
well, good. So now the buy and hold things, a lot of what with the Turner Realty we want to deal with is investors are either looking for buy and hold or investors that maybe want to get their profit out of their transactions.
Right, turn over their property, liquidate some, create funds, and look for some new deals coming up. And I think a big part of it is you're really going. A lot of people look at all those things, wholesaling, flipping, buy and hold, as investing in real estate, and it's really not. You've got the wholesaling and the flipping to where you're a business.
Yeah.
You have to constantly have that turnaround. You have to constantly be creating that income, and it is a ton of work.
It is.
And I think that's why a lot of real investors do transition over to real investing, buying and holding, because creating those passive income streams to where they're working a whole lot less, but they're creating the revenue that is constant and consistent.
We created a hellstorm, and I put in we have a Facebook group, which if you want to kind of keep up, in fact, I think this video will be put up on there, but we'll answer investors' questions and stuff. It's called Deal Flow for Real Estate Investors. And we did some copy, and it said, wholesaling is not real estate investing. And talk about a firestorm.
Oh, right. Right. Absolutely.
every wholesaler of the world. And they went on and on and on. And it's like, we ran the statement in big, bold letters. And then I just kind of walked away. And it's just like, somebody would make a comment, and then 5 people would make a comment against that.
It turns into a turf war.
Yeah, there's like 200 comments. And it's like, okay, I'm not touching that.
And that's a lot of people have their own. They have their own preferences. They really believe in the flipping. They enjoy it. They get the rush out of it. They love that immediate benefit that they get on closing day, opposed to the cash flow that trickles in every month and the constant management. So it really depends on what kind of person you are, and which is the best fit for you. I think really, all investment vehicles aren't for everyone, basically.
Well, the power of buy and hold is that we get to use leverage. We get somebody else that's paying the property off for us. Right now, the cost of money is so low and the rents haven't gone down. The owner finance terms haven't gone down. There's the people that can get the really good quality financing, and there's people that can't, and they understand that and they're willing to pay more. So buy and hold, in a sense, is just it's like arbitrage. You're holding, you're getting money at a cheap price and you're giving it out at a more expensive price, or you're taking a property that may not have a lot of equity, but the equity increases. And so with buy and hold, we're definitely capturing appreciation if there is appreciation. Everybody expects there will be dramatic appreciation coming up. We're getting that spread between what we're paying for the money and what somebody else is paying for it. We're getting equity on that. And then a lot of times it's leverage. So in other words, it's not like I have $100 and $100 investment. I have $10. So if that investment goes up 10% in value at the end of the year, I don't make a 10% appreciation. I make 100%, not appreciation, but not 10. Instead of a 10% return on my money, I make 100% return on my money. And so that's the power of buy and hold. And to me, the biggest power of buy and hold is if we set it up right, it's not an extremely active job. I mean, there are some things you have to do. You do have to stay on top of the taxes, have to stay on top of the insurance, have to stay on top of the payments. That's work, but it's not. A lot of that can be outsourced to property managers. It's just not that hard to do. And I think I shared with you, and I don't know if I told you this story, Charles, but Landon and I went to San Francisco. You didn't go with us on that, did you? We went to San Francisco, and we went to Napa Valley, and I had like 2 or 3 rehabs going on. And Landon primarily does owner finance and buy and hold. And on that trip, I was talking business probably 99% to his 1% because I was dealing with those flips. And it was just dealing with contractors, dealing with title companies, just dealing with all that stuff, and trying to do it remotely, which is hard. And it's like, if you can set up a buy and hold right, and you can put it out there, or you can exchange it for another buy and hold and do it passively, it's a lot more fun. And if we get a good deal set up, we don't push it. We just make the numbers work. We put it in the file cabinet, and we just try to collect money on it for the next 15 or 30 years. If we can.
Absolutely. I think the cash-on-cash return, it kind of speaks for itself. I've gotten, in the last few weeks, I've been talking to a lot of new investors. And a lot of them are younger people that are in their early 20s, and they're discovering investing through YouTube and through the books and through the podcasts. And a lot of these aren't even homeowners yet. So a lot of times I want to use my own experience as an example. The very first home that I bought, I had just gotten married to my beautiful wife, was 23 years old, purchased the home, got a great deal for it. It was a distressed sale. I believe it was $85,000. And within a year, we had purchased another home, rented that one out for $1,400, and held on to it and had the same tenant for years and years and years. Right. Today, that property is worth $100,000 more than what we purchased it for, and the income over that time has just been phenomenal. So if you look at the cash-on-cash return, it's just, you can't beat it.
It is. Wholesaler might make, now what Charles is working on, these numbers won't be valid, but if it's residential houses, a wholesaler is going to make anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. And one of the largest wholesalers in town told me that he averaged about $8,500. So you think that number's still accurate? That was about 3 or 4 years ago, Charles.
8,500. I mean, it depends on the investors. Like some, like a volume guy, they might be okay with 8,500, but 8,500 if you're doing full time wholesaling, it might be low now. Yeah, it might be a little tough. It might be a little tough to stick
And he
around.
was doing 300 to 400 houses a year here in Houston, and so those are pretty good numbers. But it's just too much work, and
tremendous amount of
work. If you make even $10,000 or $15,000 versus put the property in your portfolio, and there's different ways to do that. It just sits there, and then they pay down the debt, and the appreciation goes up, and before you know it, you're looking at $150,000, $200,000, and it doesn't seem possible, but it's nice when you keep these properties for a while, and boom, all of a sudden one of them gets paid off. We bought a house in 2008, and my wife just kind of doubles up the payments whenever she wants or whenever she can. And it's like we paid like $120,000. It was worth probably $160,000. And the other day she said we owed like $17,000 on it. And we have a tenant making that payment for us. And it's like it's just taking care of itself. So just the key is figure out how to get 20 of those or 30 of those or 40 of those, and then now you've done something.
Right.
So. And
I think that's a fear that a lot of, I've also talked to a lot of people to where they, without actually experiencing it, being a landlord, being a property owner or an investor like that, they foresee all of these headaches. I don't want to have to go in the middle of the night, fix a toilet. I don't want to go and cover a roof when they have a leak. I don't want to face all these problems that pop up out of nowhere. But in reality, that's why we always have a handyman on speed dial. We have a management company that's taking care of those properties.
Right.
We really don't see those things a lot of the time until they're already addressed because they're usually very minor issues. And the management company has, they've got a certain amount to where they can just take care of it and then report it to you later on. It's not the kind of headaches, if you do it right, that a lot of people foresee. So,
and one thing you and your dad and I are working on a lot is with Turner Realty is helping investors find properties and sell their properties. It's 15 or 20 years ago when you went to sell a property or buy a property, there's been a lot more compliance requirements now than you've ever had before. And one of the things is if you're an investor working with investors, you know what it takes. You know how painful it is to make a mortgage payment on an empty house or pay a house that's not being rented. or how hard it is to work with a tenant that tears up a property. So as investors, we know that firsthand, and we try to work with other investors and love to have any investor business out there that you guys want. One of the things is we talk a lot, like in our office, we talk about setting expectations, and setting expectations for just like our negotiation, when they submit an offer to us. And then all of a sudden we got to do an option. And then the next thing you know, they're negotiating on the offer. And before you know it, you're signing at one price, and then they're getting you to do all these other things. So a lot of times just working with that other realtor, making sure their lender's qualifying, which we have absolutely the greatest lender in the universe working with us. And they'll actually answer our phone calls, even though they're super busy. Do we still have the largest meetup in Texas?
I haven't really checked lately, but
we did at one time.
It's the biggest meetup I've seen in Texas. I haven't seen another one with more members.
Yeah, it's like 7,500, 7,300.
It's quite a big group.
And then now that's a good meetup whenever you want to announce a meeting or whatever and reach out to people. We also have Deal Flow for Investors, which is a Facebook group where you can actually get on there and ask your questions. And then I am up all hours of the night. In fact, I was up at 4:00 this morning just reading about what Biden's promising to do. And I want to share some of those things with you guys. But that Deal Flow is really good. And what's good about that Facebook like that is like the way the forums used to be. And when somebody has a question, a lot of people will pipe in from different perspectives, and sometimes it's not worth the ink that they write it with or the typing. And then sometimes it's like, oh, I learned something. This is really good. I need to pay attention to that. So what do we want to do first? We want to talk about.
Let me make a quick comment as well, because I think earlier Tom was talking about the different ways to make money in real estate and whether or not you want to be a wholesaler. So I'll just share some personal experiences for me, because I come from the corporate world. So a lot of times when some of my old friends from the corporate world, they would hit me up and say, "Hey, I want to get into real estate." So my first question to them is always, "Do you really know what's involved in what I do?" And so they laugh and they're like, "Okay, what do you do?" I was like, "I'm just going to ask you one question. Do you really want, right, you've got a good job. Do you really want to leave the job and go get another job? Or do you really want to take the money that you have and just put it somewhere and not have to think about it, and someone else is making you money all the time?"
Right.
So they always veer the other way. It's like, yeah, I just want to put my money to work. So that's where I'm like, well, then get with people who can go find properties for you, maybe like Turner Properties, go find properties for you, help you property manage it. Then, that's a very good avenue to get into real estate if you don't really want to do all of that work.
I think that's a really good point, because a lot of people that are in the corporate world, or they're in different jobs, they feel like they're stuck in different jobs. I think it's the financial independence that they desire so much, because they feel like a slave to their business or a slave to their employer or whatever it be. So immediately the first thing they think is, well, as seen on TV, I could jump right into flipping. I could quit my job and just make a fortune. But I think in most cases, the smartest thing to do is start investing while you have a job, and start taking funds, putting them into investments, growing a portfolio, because just like you said, you need to establish yourself, establish a strong portfolio before you make that big transition. And I think what can happen is you start investing in real estate, you build a portfolio, you have cash flow income, you have equity building for you. That will allow you to quit your job sooner, because you're building those assets necessary to sustain your lifestyle while you're still having a steady paycheck, you're covering your expenses, you have health insurance and a 401k match and all of those great things. So I think that's a natural starting point for most investors, honestly.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about, I want to add one last thing to that. And it's hard for me to believe this is even coming out of my mouth, because I've never bought real estate based on appreciation, and I've never bought real estate that didn't have great loan to values. I've never done that. And what's happened is I've made money in down markets and up markets. We're in a place we've never been before. There's people who are credit worthy and people who aren't credit worthy. If you do the math, and it's not that hard, you just got to know the basics, like what is my vacancy, what is my management cost, what is my mortgage, my taxes, insurance. But if you run those numbers, you can buy something for retail right now and make incredible cash flow, whether you rent it or whether you own or finance it. Either scenario, you can make incredible cash flows because the cost of money is so low. It's 2.6 to 3% on second homes. It's just unbelievable. We've got a deal right now. We are supposed to buy a beach house in Crystal Beach. In fact, we bought one a couple of weeks ago. We're supposed to buy another one. And the lady has a 4.5% interest rate on the beach house. And we're real creative. We got her to agree to everything. And it's like, I don't think I want to take over a 4.5% loan. You know, like a year ago, I'd like beg anybody to give me a 4.5%. And now it's like, okay, wait, having that 4.5% loan is going to cost me an extra $500 a month or $400 a month. So it's like we're in a place we've never been, and it's like kind of taking off on what Charles said is, do you want somebody to help you set that up and get it set up right and make sure you pick good areas and make sure you get the good properties, not the bad properties that you have trouble actually getting them produce the money. But how good a deal do you need now? Because cash flow is really important.
Absolutely. I mean, they're almost giving the cash away. And not only that, we've had very little inflation recently, but a lot of experts are expecting that we will see a rise in inflation.
We're already seeing
that cheap money that we get now will be paying back in cheaper dollars, and it just makes it that better of an investment at the moment.
Yeah, and I don't know if everybody understood what you just said because that's kind of a tricky move right there. So $100,000, if the dollars get cheaper, it's not really $100,000 anymore. It's like $50,000.
Exactly.
Right. So
exactly.
The debt you're taking on is going to be devalued because inflation is going up, and it's also going to increase the value of the property, and that middle part's called equity, and the equity's getting bigger because the bottom number's going down and the top number's going up. So
one of the best things an investor can do is get in front of inflation.
Yeah.
Just because and leverage the financing and the money at the time. So
I was up at 4:00 this morning reading this stuff, and I made notes on my phone, and then I decided I better write it down because I don't trust my phone. But some of these things that affect real estate investors makes a big difference to us, and we have to be really mindful that if we take on $1 trillion, $2 trillion, $3 trillion, people are going to want that paid back, right? There's going to be strong demand to get that money paid back, and the one way they're going to want it paid back is in the form of taxes. Right. And I just want to share some of these ideas, and maybe we talk real briefly, like a minute or so on each one of these. But they're going to be eliminating a lot of the tax breaks. One of the things that would happen is, in fact, I posted this other day. Somebody said, well, you can't get out of paying taxes. Well, you actually can. You can die. And you don't have to pay the taxes. And when you die and you have...
We don't recommend that, by the way.
No, I do recommend it. No, I think you hold on to properties till you die.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, if you look at it from that perspective, okay.
No, you
but, don't die to avoid your taxes.
But don't sell because you have to pay taxes on that.
Absolutely. Kick the can until... Right, exactly.
Right, because if the cash flow makes sense, why would you ever sell that? Why would you pay taxes on that? And so if I were to die, first of all, a couple of things. If I sell before I die, I have to pay capital gains. We've always had a difference between short-term and long-term. They're going to screw this long-term capital gains up. So if people don't sell properties soon, they may not be able to take their capital gains. And then if it's a year or 2 years down the road, when they raise that long-term capital gain rate, it's going to be very hard to sell. That's not a good thing. So if you're going to be doing some moving stuff around, it may be time to move that stuff around.
That's also what's great about 1031 exchanges or self-directed IRAs or ways to...
So that's the other thing that's on the chopping block, the 1031 tax-deferred exchange. That's on the chopping block.
Yeah, which is awful because that is an incredible... opportunity for investors.
Right. So if you have a tax deferred exchange, you can sell. Say you have $1 million portfolio or whatever in real estate, you can exchange it into something else that's even better, or you can sell it, take the taxable gain, or you can do like an installment sale and pay that gain by the month, which is as a negotiator, if I'm trying to get the people to finance me, that installment sale technique is very, very powerful to talk them into doing that. So when they start messing with these numbers, then we have to be careful about that. It used to be when I died, my heirs would get the property and there would be an automatic step up in basis, which means that if they went out the next day and sold that property at market value, there was not a taxable gain on that. But if they do away with the step, if they don't allow the step up in basis, then that tax bill when they go to sell will be on them. So now my heirs are going to potentially be forced to sell everything that I own. It's
turning something. That's a great thing about real estate is you can create a lot of legacy investments for your children and for your family, and by removing some of those benefits to your heirs, it's really a slap in the face.
Just a couple more I want to share with you is so the corporate rate they're looking at change that from 21% to 28%. Well, who pays taxes with a corporation? It's whoever's buying that product that the corporation has. So to me that's almost, I don't even understand that. I mean, it's just basically you're forcing the people to hire or to charge more for what they sell, and then they have to pay that so that you can pay your taxes. The minimum rate is probably going to go up to $15. Whatever it is now I think it's $7 and something. The silver lining I saw on this, and I actually have made a lot of money on this in the past, not a lot, but some, and I tried and I did, is that they're on affordable housing. They're going to make houses more affordable, give more credits on affordable housing, and they're going to give an actual tax incentives, I think up to a $15,000 tax credit. If they can get this through Congress, they're going to get a tax credit up to $15,000 for first-time home buyers. So there is a little bit of a silver lining. But ultimately, when we spend $1 trillion, $2 trillion, $3 trillion, it's literally redistributing wealth.
Right.
And unfortunately, I don't know what else they can do other than having riots in every city and every street and every other place because so many people are without jobs right now.
Well, as investors, we just need to encourage others. We need to follow through ourselves and vote for the people that are going to help people that are trying to achieve the American dream or be prosperous, help grow that, because, we create employment, we create opportunities, we create the economy, the small businesses, the medium businesses, and the large as well. And by attacking those that, create such a high standard of living it's insane.
We, Charles and I just sold a house to a guy south of Houston, and they're starting a steel plant. And I got to talking to that guy, and he said if depending on how the elections come out will determine some of this, but they're building a large, very large steel plant. I mean, it's like the numbers are so massive on it, it's just hard to imagine a building could be that big. And he said, for every job that we put out there, we make 17 jobs. And I've heard that before, like in white-collar jobs. For every white-collar job, there's 3 blue-collar jobs.
Right.
With a steel company, it's 17 jobs. So we don't want to tax those guys, right? We don't. Right. We want the car builders to come to Texas. We want the steel companies to come to Texas and to the United States.
Well, I think that's why that's a perfect case in point that the Texas economy has always been pro-business and pro-business owner. And that's why we've had one of the healthiest economies in the country, and why we constantly have people coming to Texas from other states. You've got California, for example, that has so many problems that are compounding and getting worse. And people are coming here. I remember 15 years ago, investors were investing here like crazy because the cost of properties, the healthy rental market, all of the wonderful things that were in Texas, they were investing here. It wasn't much longer after that they start moving here.
No, that's
The last 10 years, it's
when we do market reports. One of the top numbers you want to look at is like, what's employment going to be like in your area?
right.
The world is moving. The world is moving to Texas. I mean, you have the Golden Triangle, which people. I don't mean the Golden Triangle in Port Arthur and Beaumont. I mean the Golden Triangle between San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. There's so many people moving in there. It's almost like anything you buy in that area is going to continue to improve as long as the market for Texas looks that good. And
Absolutely.
and with Turner Realty, I mean, hopefully we're smart enough to figure that out, and we know that it's just things that we were paying $80,000 for 3 years ago. It's like I see them and they're like $140,000 or $150,000,
Oh, absolutely.
and the
That's
demand's not going away.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I think the show's almost over, but I want to put something out there that we didn't. For those of you listening, if you have questions, go to 2020investorshow.com and shoot us your questions. Submit a question, and we'll answer it on the show. I also want to put out there that Turner Realty is pushing our own form of investor stimulus, and that's giving a listing break to investors so they make more money on their sales. And we're currently, for the next couple months, doing 4% listings for homeowners and investors, and that puts a lot of money in your pocket where it should be. So that's our way of giving back to our clients, our own, stimulus that really matters. So. And I think we've got a great show lined up for next week. We're going to talk more about investing. And do you have anything you want to add, Ray?
Did you have any questions? Do we have enough time?
I don't think we have enough time. I think that's it. So I tell you what, we'll tackle them at the first of next show. We'll tackle your questions. We'll get them answered, and hopefully we'll help you get started on your path to investing success.